I tried to review Remnant 2 a year later. I told myself I wouldn't touch Remnant 2 again until one of my friends bought it. Guess what? The day has finally come. The yellow squirrel, now apparently a spacefaring cat, finally pulled the trigger, but only after waiting for all the DLC to drop. So here we are, a year later. We replayed the entire campaign, tackled all the 3 DLCs, and after waiting this long, I finally launched Adventure Mode to hunt down the archetypes I've been eyeing since day one. Now, if you're like me and stopped playing after beating the base game, you might be wondering what do the DLC really add, especially if you care about the story. Though, let's be real, most of us play this game for the gameplay, secrets, and loot, not its narrative. In this review, I'll dive into the story content from the DLCs, my thoughts on the new bosses, a breakdown of the archetypes I've unlocked, and the changes the game has seen since I last played it. Let's see if Remnant 2 still holds up, or if it's just been gathering dust for a reason. Alright, let's start with one of the biggest changes I noticed in Remnant 2, the Fragments. Last year, I mistakenly called them mods in my review. Turns out, they're Fragments. My bad. Fragments are still around, but instead of slotting them directly into a relic, they're now applied to something called a prism. And let me tell you, building your prism is a grind fest. Here's the rundown. First, you need to upgrade your fragment to mythic rarity. Dwell, your go-to guy for this, but you'll need a mountain of relic dust. You can farm this by looting chests while exploring, or better yet, running boss rush mode. It hands down the best way to farm both relic and XP. Once you've got enough dust and upgraded your fragments to mythic, you feed them to your prism. Here's the kicker. If you fed the wrong fragment, it won't combine and the upgrades you want won't show. You'll have to cleanse the stone and start from scratch. And guess what? The XP and fragment you've invested, gone. No refunds. Let's say you do get the perfect combination for your build. Congrats! But you're not done yet. Maxing out your prism rewards you with 3 random legendary perks or fragments, and if the RNG gods decide to troll you, you'll need to cleanse your legendary slot and grind some more. The one saving grace, cleansing your legendary slot only drops your prism back to level 50, so you'll only need to grind 1 level's worth of XP. Long story short, this system is a grind. A lot of grind. The good news? You're not stuck with 1 prism. You can get your first one by beating a world boss, buying 2 of them from NPCs like Dwell or Cass, or farming boss rush mode. Oh, and there's even one hidden in the world that you can dig up with a shovel. Now, here's where I'm torn. On one hand, this system feels like a busy work. Why isn't there a fusion list in the game? Seriously, if not for people like Sept or Arsomania sharing their discoveries, I wouldn't even know you could fuse fragments. And why the hell aren't fragments and XP refundable when you cleanse a stone? It's like the devs doubled down on the grind just for the sake of it. On the other hand, I kind of appreciate the freedom this system gives. You can tailor your character to your exact playstyle or build different setups depending on your party's needs. And best of all, no microtransactions. None. It's pure gameplay. In today's gaming landscape, that's a rarity. So yeah, it's a grind, but at least it's a grind that rewards your effort. Let's talk about one of the standout new features, Boss Rush Mode. This mode will be your new best friend if you're grinding relic dust and XP. Here's how it works. Before each boss fight, instead of the usual checkpoint, the redstone, you'll find these crystals. Using one gives you a choice of 3 random buffs. The twist? These buffs are not shared with your party, so everyone gets to tailor their loadout individually. At the end of the rush, you'll be rewarded with XP and sometimes items. The difficulty level and length of the boss rush determine your XP multiplier, so pushing yourself pays off. Honestly, this mode is a fantastic palate cleanser if you're burnt out from exploring the main worlds. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive into the DLC stories. Oh, and before I continue, there's one glaring issue I have to address. Unlike Remnant 2 from the Ashes, where the DLC introduced an entirely new world, remember Clementine's world? Remnant 2's DLC are expansions of the three main worlds, Losum, Yeesha, and Nerud. For some of you, this might be a deal breaker. To be honest, it kind of was for me. I was hoping for a fresh new world, or at least a glimpse of what happened after the base game's cliffhanger ending. But nope, it seems they're saving those juicy post-ending revelations for Remnant 3. Disappointing? Sure, but does that mean the DLCs are bad? Not necessarily, so let's get into it. Here are my thoughts on the DLC's content. Let's start with my favorite world in Remnant 2. Let's start with my favorite world in Remnant 2. Losum. This DLC introduces the Awakened King, but narratively it doesn't bring much to the table, apart from some side characters like the Scribe, the Scrotum Man, and Nimue being in prison. Nothing here really hits harder than what we saw in the base game. Sure, you can now speak to or fight the Slumbering King, but honestly, his personality feels like that of a decaying tree, and he looks the part too. As for the fight, it's decent. The King's teleport move caught me off guard the first time, and his AoE blast is either easily dodged or punishing if you mess up. Mechanically, he's an okay boss, but narratively, I couldn't care less. The Red Prince has way more personality, even he's also a massive dick. What makes this boss worthwhile though is the alternate loot you can get. One of Remnant 2's biggest strength is how boss outcomes change based on your actions, how you fight, which side quests you complete, or even the path you take to reach them. This DLC leans fully into that feature. Every what-if scenario seems to offer a different reward, which is fantastic. Now, about the story outcomes, not as impressive. Whether you follow or disobey the King's order, he'll always brand you a traitor. My favorite approach, collect the 3 tokens for the Red Prince, let him stab you, then kill the one true king. That route nets you a set I absolutely love. Of course, now I'm tempted to reroll Losum and take down the Red Prince with the Assassin's Dagger. Snag that sweet crown. As for the new areas, they're okay. They maintain the Yarnum-inspired vibes that I adore, but nothing stood out or wowed me. It's just more of the same. The air boss stick to the world's theme, which is fine, but again, nothing feels truly fresh. The highlight of this DLC for me, the Ritualist archetype. This class spreads status effects across a wide area, and its level 5 ability, Miasma, is an absolute blast to use. Plus, the way my character chants while casting it, immersive. Overall, I like this DLC, not because it expands Losum's lore, but because the content feels worth the price. Honestly, even without the one true king, Losum wouldn't lose any of its charm. The basic game already did a fantastic job building this world. If anything, the DLC didn't add enough narrative depth to make me care about Losum's denizens. But hey, it's still a solid DLC. The secrets you can uncover make it worthwhile, and my favorite fight so far is the Sparkfire. I just wish there was more in terms of storytelling. After all, finding secrets is great, but finding meaningful secrets with sweet loot at the end, better. The Forgotten Kingdom, on the other hand, has a better story than the previous DLC. I was genuinely invested in the tale of the Lost Tribe. At first, I felt sorry for Walt, cast out for his beliefs, but as the story unfolded, my sympathy turned into disgust. Like Dusa's story though, it had me hooked. Was she truly a god who fell in love with the king of the Pans? A benevolent goddess seeking to curb the Pans' hunger for power? Or was she a manipulative deity brainwashing the king and his people to control their progress for her own selfish ends? This ambiguity, this layered storytelling, I loved every bit of it. Unlike the Awakened King DLC, the Forgotten Kingdom gave me a story that made me care deeply about Yeesha and the Pan. Speaking of stories, one of my favorite secrets in this DLC is Jack, the soldier left behind. He knew Founder Ford and was one of the first humans to use the stone. He also remembered Earth before the root, Jack's tale, is heartbreaking. For all the loss he suffered, he persevered. And he deserved to return home even if there wasn't much waiting for him there. Jack's story hit me right in the feels. Loot! Loot! Let's talk about loots. The archetype that fits me like a glove, the Invoker. This is the class I'm rolling with from now on. It perfectly fits my dream build, a mage who uses guns. Sure, the Ritualist does something similar, but the Invoker, its lightning strike, steam healing, and buffs align perfectly well with my healer buffer playstyle. Plus, its armor set is hands down my favorite from all the 3 DLCs. The additional maps in the Forgotten Kingdom are, in my opinion, the best. Exploring them was an absolute treat. The vibrant colors and lighting made the experience almost relaxing. When I wasn't getting pummeled by everything and wanted me dead, aesthetically, I love these maps. While Losum is dark and bleak, and Nerud feels alien and sci-fi, Yaesha is straight up Uncharted, Tomb Raider style jungle exploration. But let's talk about the traps. I hate them. Sure, I just praised the maps for the Tomb Raider revive, but the traps, they're a pain. Jump puzzles are already challenging in this game thanks to the movement system, and the death traps in this DLC are not fun to navigate. That said, some of you might enjoy them for the challenge or the bragging rights when you call your friends how easy it was while laughing at the rest of us who didn't get good. Here's my advice for surviving the traps. For the first death trap sequence, use the shield wall mod and cube gun to block the arrows. Same tactic for the second sequence, shield wall and cube gun are lifesavers. For the buzzsaw traps, sorry, no tricks here, just patience and good timing. Climbing is annoyingly slow in this game, so you'll have to adjust your jumps accordingly. When trying to get the Invoker archetype, we can use the cube gun shield to block some arrows, but moving slower while aiming is a pain, especially with all that sand. Despite my hatred for the traps, the Forgotten Kingdom is hands down my favorite DLC. It has a story that drew me in, the archetype that is tailor-made for me, and a world that's both beautiful and captivating to explore. I had high hopes for the Dark Horizon DLC. I've always loved Nerud's world and its backstory. It's fascinating. A dying planet with inhabitants whose name I can't even recall or remember, searching for intelligent life for eons. That premise alone is intriguing. So naturally, I was expecting something good. What I got instead was confusion. The story of Dark Horizon is the weakest of the 3 DLCs. It's a mess of ideas that feel crammed together yet fail to leave an impact. Set destroying Alepsis Tower shields before the final boss fight, complete with a monologue and mind-hacking shenanigans, I didn't care. Even Alepsis Tower's voice acting, which I'll admit is good and gives off serious Collector from Mass Effect 2 vibes, couldn't save it. One of Remnant 2's greatest strength is its exploration, but Dark Horizon botched this by making it an absolute nightmare. They added gliders, which sound cool in theory but are a pain to use. I constantly got lost during Sep's Bloodhound moments. He really likes exploring and not paying any attention to anyone. Checking your map mid-glide is basically suicide since the glider doesn't hover for long. Last year, I praised the 3D map system. Now, after gliding through Nerud's DLC, I see its flaws, loud and clear. And don't get me started on being unable to ping distant location while gliding. It makes coordinating with your party needlessly frustrating. Then there's a spawn delay for the gliding machines, which means getting separated from your group becomes an all too common issue. It's annoying. Alright, why does this matter for the story? Because Remnant 2's narrative relies heavily on exploration, environmental storytelling, item descriptions, and interactions with NPC or bosses. But in Dark Horizon, exploration is a slog. The maps are vast but mostly barren, with nothing significant to discover or interact with. Instead of pulling me into the story, The endless gliding and scattered plot threads made it hard to stay focused. Take the gardener's sparks and the bot you repair in the lab. None of them add anything meaningful to the story. Sure, you can bring sparks back to Earth, which sounds cool, until I realized the only reason I cared was because of a completely different character from another world, and not bringing another character back is just unthinkable to me. Spark itself didn't do much to grab my interest, even if it is my spirit animal in this game. Now, let's talk about that final boss. The fight itself, not bad. The voice acting, solid. But the writing? Why do we have the option to delay the boss fight? Why does Celeb's Tower claim we're too weak to face him? If the boss is truly beyond our abilities, show us. Let the boss wipe the floor with us. Let us walk away humbled and realize on our own that we're not ready. This needless dialogue choice to delay the fight feels unnecessary and detracts from the narrative. If we charge in unprepared, that's on us. Let us deal with the consequences. That would have been a way more impactful to sell the stakes. The choice to delay the fight felt unnecessary and robbed the moment of tension. On the brighter side, the loot is top tier, the weapons are fun and creative, and the Warden archetype is genuinely useful. Its drones can shield, heal, or attack enemies, making it a great combo with the Engineer archetype. The synergy between these classes is satisfying and opens up fun build possibilities. However, the Warden's armor set absolutely hideous. Sepp wore it longer than I could tolerate, and I didn't hold back on roasting him for it. It's that much of an eyesore. Dark Horizon had so much potential, but it felt short. The gliding mechanics, disjointed narrative, and forgettable side characters made exploring Nerude more frustrating than fun. Sure, the loot and archetypes are great, but they aren't enough to save a DLC that struggles to deliver a compelling story. It's a shame, really. Nerude's world deserved better. The DLC for Remnant 2 are solid additions, mostly because of the new loot and archetypes. If you're a fan of grinding and don't mind putting in the effort to maximize your gear, the DLCs will feel rewarding. The prism system can be satisfying for those who enjoy this kind of gameplay loop, but it's not for everyone. That said, I need to be honest. While I'll let some of the game's issues slide last year, my experience with the DLC revealed some glaring flaws. Random game crashes were frustrating when I was doing the gauntlet or even the triple threat boss rush. I also encountered memory leaks, once while saving presets and another while resetting traits. I had to restart my PC just to fix the issue. Compared to my experience last year, where the game only crashed once, this was disappointing. On top of that, smaller bugs like getting stuck on objects are still present, combined with the DLC's underwhelming narratives. I understand why some players don't recommend these expansions. So, ladies and gentlemen who made this far in this video, should you buy Remnant 2's DLCs? My answer is yes, but with conditions. If you love the base game, enjoy finding new loot, trying fresh archetypes, and just want more gameplay, you'll likely have fun. But if, like me, you value a strong narrative to complement the gameplay, you might feel a bit let down. The potential is there. The Forgotten Kingdom showed that the writers are capable of crafting compelling stories. It's just that the execution across the DLC wasn't consistent. Still, I'm hopeful for the future. With Remnant 3, I expect the developers have learned their lessons and deliver a narrative that matches the quality of loot and gameplay. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye.